Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Awaken Inner Wisdom. I am so happy that you are here. I have lots of juicy questions that have been submitted this week, but I always love to hear from you live. So if you're here with me, I know people are popping on as we go along here, but if you get inspired to ask a question, please do in the comments, and I'll always prioritize your question over the pre-submitted questions. So please don't hesitate to jump in. And oftentimes someone else's questions spurs a question within you, or you want something clarified. So please do not hesitate to put it in the comments and let us know what you're thinking and how you're feeling about others' questions as well. So all right, let's jump in today. I want to also say that I've been getting some really fabulous comments on my YouTube channel, and I so appreciate everyone that takes the time to tune in and to say such kind words and also ask some additional questions like, why are you wearing a crown? And so I love to always talk about why I am wearing this crown, and it is to simply channel my higher self and the insights through my awakened inner wisdom. And the whole point of this show is to really elevate where we're coming from with these questions and to come at it from a different angle, not just from this 3D plane, not just from the mind, but that we come from not only the heart, but from source intelligence, that we're actually going up in our vibration and saying, hey, what's the answer to this question that feels so heavy and so sticky and so difficult to get through? And so the crown is really a symbol of the crown chakra and connecting to source intelligence. And no, you don't have to have a crown of your own to connect in. I just love to wear it because I think it's such an incredible symbol to show us how important it is to be connected to our inner wisdom, to awaken our inner wisdom, and to really tap into that innate intelligence that lies deeply within each one of us. So we've all got it, and I love hearing your questions here. I love answering them and providing some intuitive insights that come from my higher self to yours. So please don't hesitate to put questions in the chat, whether you're on live or replay. Okay, so question number one. Let's jump in here. I started dating a gentleman a month or so ago and am really enjoying his company. I am looking for a life partner and I'm a little concerned about the age gap. I'm in my mid-50s and he's in his early 70s. What should I do? Well, there's a lot of components that go into this. And so not knowing all the details, I would say from a higher level, that age does not have to be a discriminating factor for you. I'm a big believer that soulmates can have a huge disparity in age. Now, with that said, it's always going to be about the lessons that we've called in to learn. And so that particular individual may have some of the pearls for you as to what it is that you need to know more about yourself. Now, if we just kind of come down to like the basics of things, I think that oftentimes in dating situations, the old story of, you date somebody like your mother or someone like your father, and that's based on your beliefs and your upbringing and your wounds and things that you need from someone else. So I would just tap into that a little bit and see if there is, I'm not saying that there is, but if there's a father figure type energy that might be coming through because of the age disparity. And sometimes it's a wisdom disparity. It's that they provide a lot of wisdom. So they might be providing like that real stake in the ground for you, but it might be that they're on a different ascension journey than you are, and that you're actually gaining a lot of pearls of wisdom from them. And so let's not discount something like age, right? Let's not discount something like culture. Let's not discount all the other things that we want to judge someone else for. And if you're really feeling that there's an attraction there and that you really want to explore this relationship, absolutely do, because we don't know, how many days we have left on planet Earth, right? None of us know. It doesn't matter, about our age. So we don't have to do things dependent upon an age or a number. And so I would encourage you to explore the relationship, but also just keep tuning into What is the fear that you have around the age? Is it that that person may pass before you and you don't want to be alone again? Is it that you don't want to be a caregiver? What are some of those real concerns? And then have those conversations with that individual at the appropriate time. You may just end up having a lot of fun for a couple of months or maybe a year, and then you decide to move on. But I think the most important thing is to have that transparent trust conversation, because that's what builds the stronger bond between the two of you, is that when you can really talk about it. Because, you may have the concern about the age and they may be having the same concern about you. Like, oh, they're so much younger than me. So are they going to take off with someone else when I do need that caregiver, or when I do, fall deeply, madly in love with this person, they're going to be gone just simply because I'm older. So they're most likely having some similar thoughts and concerns that you are. And the more you can talk about this in the open, the greater the bond will be. And hey, why wouldn't you want to find out now if there's something that is really misaligned with you and this individual on your journey beyond the age, right? So I think we're at a time now where we're wanting to streamline this dating thing to get to the core of the matter. And if you just want to have fun, that's okay too. It doesn't always have to be that it's, some hardcore spiritual journey, but it is at the end of the day, because that's what relationships are for, is to be mirrors for us to understand more about ourselves. So hopefully that's helpful. I love these kind of conversations. And so please, if you have additional questions, please put them in the chat. In fact, I see that we have some live questions coming in, so I'm going to tune in over here. I have a history of burnout and am just coming out of another one. My last one, ! I have set up the next 2 months of quiet and rest, and already have the new ideas and opportunities appearing. What are your thoughts on how to balance my body's and mind's need for rest and exploring new creative pursuits for what is next for me and my work? Well, congratulations on having this be your last one. I think we always like to say that, and hopefully that is true, and I will manifest that with you, that this is truly the last one. And I think that you're on it by just tuning into, how do I do this differently? And I know when we're the types of people that have lots of ideas that come to us and we love to act on them, I am that way as well, that journaling these ideas and putting them in, and you may not like this phrase, but parking lot, so that you can just set them over here, put them in a special spot. Sometimes I do this with note cards. And I don't just do it in my journal, because sometimes things get lost. And I really honor them as an idea, and I write them and then put them somewhere special for later. And I would continue to tune into these projects, not jumping in and saying yes right away, but tuning in and giving yourself time to tune in multiple times as to, is this for my highest good? Because what's for your highest good today, as you're still in reprieve, may not be for your highest good in a month. But I think most importantly, what's coming to mind on this to share is that it is the mind. All of these ideas are the mind. And when we are listening to the mind, it can get really chaotic really fast. It can get really exciting really fast. All of those things can happen. But it's when we anchor it into our hearts, like, how do I feel about this particular project in the action steps of it, but also in the end result in it? What is the why, right? And how do I feel about that? Chances are they're always exciting with your why, because that's why you're excited to participate, or you're excited to take on that new project, or whatever it is that comes your way. But it is really anchoring in to feeling in your body. How do I feel about that? And I also think sharing the ideas with other people, like, hey, here's what came across my screen, or here's what came to me as an opportunity, and hearing yourself, not so much that you need to share with other people, but that you hear yourself speak in an unfiltered way. Because when we're sitting at home in our chairs or our sofas or whatever, we're in our own narrative. So we're always just listening to our own thoughts and kind of convincing ourselves on a certain idea or narrative that we think, a fantasy, if you will, of what we think that particular thing is going to lead to. And when we talk it out and we talk it through, or we journal it out with our higher self, and we start asking some of the questions like, well, what is it about this? Is it because I have a need to feel busy? Is it that I'm, disguising it as a real like why kind of project when it's maybe just a busyness project? Maybe it's something that makes my ego feel like I'm important, or I'm doing something important, or I'm contributing in some really important way. So I think it's also tuning into those nuances of when the mind tries to tell us things that, you just ask yourself the question, is that really true? Like at the core of my being. And what would my life be like if I had less projects? Because I think there's also just that real sitting with yourself and not having a lot of things to do. And that's what is the biggest avoider that most people do when they want to take on new activities or do new things, is that they're avoiding. And I think we saw this so well with what happened in 2020, is we saw that people didn't know what to do with themselves. So like it went, crazy because they couldn't do their normal routines of getting out there and distracting themselves. So just be really tuned in to whether this is a real why solid project, or is this a distractor? And if it is, like, what kind of distractor is it? Is it what am I not wanting to feel by, if I'm saying yes? What is it that I'm not wanting to feel if I said no? Is it feeling left out? Is it that, just dig a little bit deeper into that. And I think most importantly, and I know you know this, is that it's really spending time with yourself, loving every aspect of yourself, and loving the moment that you're in, loving the sip of tea that you're having, right? Loving those moments. And when we can't love those moments without getting into too much of the mind and the questioning, like, well, what would it take to just get me back into that moment? And a lot of times it's the easy stuff that we can do. Just, I kiss Lily, my dog. I snuggle in with her, or I go to a memory that actually brings me really warm and fuzzy feelings. So there's lots of ways that we can get ourselves just back to the basics of self-love and being in that moment. And there's an addition to this, having discernment of what is a good business idea or opportunity versus does my heart actually want to do it? That's the new practice I need to develop. Thank you. Yeah, and that's interesting because one of the other submissions that came forward, it's actually, I have it as question number 7, but I'm going to pull it forward. This was a pre-submitted question. And so here it is. I have a business idea and I'm super excited about it. I feel like I should be really careful about who I share the idea with at this early stage. And yet I want to attract the right people to help me. Is it silly to be so cautious? Am I worrying about unnecessary things? Well, this is kind of in the vein, I think, of what we were just coming off of, but a little bit different in that it's really about feeling into the why again, which is what we just spoke about. But it's also the knowingness that if this is your project, this will be your project, right? That if this is what's meant to be aligned in your destiny, it's going to align no matter what. Now, with that said, we also know that when we talk about oneness, which is such a broad, expansive topic, but when we talk about oneness, there really is all the ideas out there in oneness. Like everyone and everything is connected. So the ideas that come to us can come to many people, even though sometimes they're extremely unique. They feel like they're just for us. We all have an opportunity to say yes or no to whether or not we're going to take on this new idea. Now, with that, there's going to come a lot of the ideas around like, ooh, how aligned am I? How determined am I? And I don't mean that from the mind, like I got to get all this done. I mean that like, am I lined up with this? Like, am I really lined up with this? And how do I really feel about moving this forward? And that's sort of like the image that comes to me is carrying the torch, right? The Olympic torch, like where one person carries it on and carries it on. And am I willing to be that person that's going to lead the torch carrying? And at some point, there may be opportunities to have others carry that torch as well in the teamwork. But in the beginning, yeah, sometimes these ideas, it's probably better to have them a little bit more close to the vest, because you want to have the experience of fleshing out that idea yourself, coming up with, and I don't mean that you're not talking to anyone. I'm just saying, like, from a confidentiality standpoint, from putting it out there into the universe, having that opportunity to really, really dig into, like, what does this look like? Like, big picture and lots of details, like, what does this look like? And then you start getting a lot of other people involved in your idea when you have it a little bit more fleshed out. It really helps you to bring your unique flair, your unique ideas, and a little bit more of like a purity in the channel of which you're bringing this idea to fruition. And then you can start to get a lot of other people's ideas, because sometimes I think we get distracted by getting other people's energies in. Again, it's very different for each person, and how you go about doing this can be very unique to your situation. But if you've got a particular idea, I would recommend that you keep it in a container and that you flush it out and that you have fun flushing it out, so that you can actually have a framework that you feel is grounded in your why. And then you can get other people involved, and there can be lots of arms and legs to how this all unfolds. And of course, the support you need to bring it all to fruition. So ideas are always a lot of fun. The initial stage is sometimes the most fun, because then we actually get into the implementation of it. And that is where oftentimes the wheels fall off. So be really strong on your why, and really strong as to what your vision is for how that particular idea is going to have an impact, assuming that you're impact based. And I think you are, otherwise you wouldn't be watching the show. So, okay, so that's great. If there's any other questions or comments, and for any of you out there that you go, gosh, I would love to have like more of a personal conversation about some of these questions or ideas that are coming up, there is a program called Awaken Inner Wisdom Membership. And it is exactly what we do there. Each week we have a lesson, and then we go deeper into concepts. So spiritual concepts, awakening concepts, ascension concepts that help us to really stay grounded here on planet Earth, but also tap into the celestial and into our higher selves. So it's a great way to go deeper than being here on the show, which we answer questions. We get some really incredible insights, but that allows us to go much deeper into some of these topics and how we can get things to work in our life and in the flow of spirit and our soul's plan. So if you're interested in that, please check the links below, and you can apply for the Awaken Inner Wisdom membership. Okay, let's jump on to the next question. Okay, I'm finding the spiritual journey exhausting. I'm doing the work, and yet there's days where I'll feel great, go to sleep, and wake up to find my mind going rogue. I feel terrible and can't snap out of it. Why? Well, I think you actually already know the answer to this question, and it's what we always talk about, right? It's the mind, and it's the mind also connected to the collective. And the collective is connected to a much larger field where there is a lot of chaos going on right now. A lot of things are happening. So sometimes it's your shit, sometimes it's other people's shit, and sometimes it's a real collective, and sometimes it's a planetary shift, right? We don't always know. And I'm not suggesting that we even need to dig deep into like, oh, I need to identify, was it the solar flares, or, was it this, that, the other? Was it that it was a full moon, a new moon? Because sometimes that stuff does feel exhausting. They're all tools. I'm not discounting any of the ceremonies or any of the planetary alignments or misalignments or, Mercury in retrograde periods. They're all profound, and they can all have a massive impact on our day-to-day lives, and they can make us wobble like right out of the gate, right? When we don't feel like we have any reason for that to come on. And it's simply because we are jiggling and wiggling. I know those are not the right spiritual words, but jiggling and wiggling all of this energy at a cellular level up, because we want to release and put it out. And the fastest way to release something is to feel it. And a lot of times our mechanism, our mind, has a survival mechanism in it to say, no, no, go down. No, we're not going to talk about this, or we're not going to feel this. Subconsciously, we don't even know that we're doing it oftentimes. So when we get those wobbles and we get those, it's just a mind narrative. It's an energy field. It's something that's impacting us. How do we get out of it? Well, first of all, I think we have to just accept it. We have to accept that we're going to have these moments. It doesn't mean that we accept staying in them for the entire day, unless that's just what we're called for. It's about honoring exactly where we are in that moment. Ooh, I feel that, whatever that is. Ooh, I feel grumpy. Ooh, I feel angry. Identifying, like, what is it that I'm feeling? And then asking, is there something in my field that is causing this anger? And this is where I really like to journal, because otherwise I feel like the mind can just like drift off into crazy places. Before we know it, we don't even know what we're angry about. And if we actually sit and journal and we really make an intention to say, I want to feel this feeling. I want to know this feeling, and I want to understand what it is that's coming up for me to release out into the world. And when we do that very intentionally, it just gives spirit this incredible opportunity to just release it and let it go. It makes me think to share about a recent family constellation that I did. I won't go into the details of it because it derails us too far off of the questions, but I will say that it was such a reminder. I mean, I talk about all my family constellation work in my book, Angels, Herpes, and Psychedelics, but man, it was such a great reminder about how the energies, when we observe them, it was something ancestral on my dad's side, like way, way, way back. And as soon as we got to it and we started to see it, it started to release. And with a really fine-tuned practitioner guide for family constellation work, they really are there helping to release this energy and release this energy. And so it's an amazing experience, because then it's almost like you just can't deny that feeling into these things, observing these things within ourselves is the way to move through them. I mean, how many times have we heard that? You got to move through stuff. You can't skirt around it. You can't avoid it. And that's what we do. We get taught at an early age to avoid it. Stop crying, don't cry over spilled milk, do this, do that. Don't feel it. So that's really important that we do actually feel it. And I think that that's going to help get you to shift that energy real quick. Excuse me. So yeah, I would definitely feel into that and really help yourself to shift away from the sadness, from the turmoil. And if you can't, you can't. Maybe you go for a walk. Maybe you call a friend and you vent it out. Just make sure you're not going down that road where you're just accentuating the emotion without identifying or asking for the release, because then you're just going to be like, all tangled in it, and it gets pretty gnarly pretty fast, as you know. So yeah, I think the other thing that comes to mind before I move on to the next question about this is, I do understand, and I feel the same way sometimes about the spiritual journey feeling so exhausting. But I'd like to say it this way. Let's continue to look at it as the ascension journey. Sometimes I think the word spiritual, it brings in a lot of connotations in it, and it feels like a lot of work sometimes. And when we think about life as an ascension journey, it's like just gently floating to the top. Oh, and there's that. Oh, and there's that, right? And we just allow ourselves to be in that flow and that feeling of ascending, because that's what we're doing when we're shedding all of these ideas and constructs of the mind that are reflecting to us constantly out there in our external world, just because there's a lot more people who are not in this ascension awakening journey than there are the ones who are ascending. It's the beautiful thing is the unicorns are all coming together in a tribe, and there are more and more and more. And I don't think there's ever been a time in humanity that we've had so many awakened beings. So that's the exciting part. Find the others that are also ascending and spend more time with them. And when you are with others that aren't ascending, just really tune into like, hey, what is it that I'm calling in for my growth and asking them to do for me? And when we just take it with a lot more lightheartedness, I think that really gets us into a space of ascending, as opposed to like, oh, I'm doing this spiritual journey and I have to do all this work, right? Because that just brings a vibration of like heaviness and hardness, and spirit is not intending for things to be hard, although there are some challenges and some dips along the way. All right, let's get into the next question. Again, if you have any thoughts or additional questions that you want to add in the live chat, I will always prioritize them live over the pre-submitted questions. So thank you for tuning in. Excited you're here. Okay, let's jump on to the next one. I am realizing that as I awaken into consciousness, there is space within me that I recognize as intuition and wisdom. It feels untapped and new for me. Do you have experience with this? Yes, interestingly, the story that just pops to mind to share is if you've ever been in love, like it's almost you meet someone and there's this incredible chemistry and it's like your body opens in a certain way. Okay, if you haven't been in romantic love, this might have happened if you've had a child. You have your first child and you just go, oh my God, I just feel this unconditional love that I've not felt before. And you just like feel that opening and it's like a column of light, right? So that is part of the awakening process. A lot of times people don't necessarily think about, oh, childbirth is part of the awakening process. But it really is, right? It really is because we get this opportunity to have another little human love us unconditionally, and their innocence and their vulnerability is what draws us in. And so that I would say is also an awakening moment that allows for that space within you to just be like, and anything's possible, right? You're in like romantic love and everything's possible and we can do this. Yes, we can build mountains. And so that's another awakening moment. I talk about my awakening moment of the kiss at 30,000 feet. I mean, someone could frame that and say, oh, well, you just had an affair kissing someone when you were married. And I could say, yeah, and that's true too. But the reality is that it woke me up at a cellular level. And I knew there was something a lot more that I was here to do and be and experience in this lifetime. And so I think whenever we get those opportunities, in whichever way they represent, right? Whether it's through an awakening kiss, through a romantic partner, through a baby being born, through a new puppy that comes into our home or a new kitten, all of these things, or maybe even a new friend where we just go, oh my gosh, I just feel like I've known you forever. And you're like, how is that possible? We just met and I feel this incredible trust and this alignment with you, right? So those are all opportunities for us to feel into that space that's within us that oftentimes we don't acknowledge because we're working on the earth walk stuff. And the earth walk stuff, whatever it is, paying our bills, driving our cars, doing the stuff that requires us to be really present here in this moment. That's the journey, is to bring the presence of this moment and the expansiveness and the space of which our heart brings us all together into this awakened moment, right? So where we really are accessing and awakening our inner wisdom. So yeah, I think that is such an incredible experience. I don't know if you've actually, the person asking the question, if you've actually just had this or you've had this many times. And yeah, because within me that I recognize is intuition and wisdom. And so keep accessing that. Keep going there. It feels untapped, and it is, because here's the beauty, is that the more and more that we ascend, and I know you all know this, but the more we ascend, like the more and more and more we get to learn and to experience and to feel and to tap into. So it's never ending. It's like, it's sort of the great illusion that we are limited to these physical bodies, and that our limitations are the number of years we live on planet Earth, or, when I die. And there's all these ideas that are not true to our highest self, We have eternal life. We are ever expansive. In this body, we are ever expansive. We can access our multidimensional selves. We can access other realms. We can be in multiple places at once. We are in multiple places at once. So yes, I love that you're bringing this forward, and I think it's an encouragement to all listeners to just keep expanding and expanding and growing and to feel that space within you. And when we open to greater states of consciousness, we are really channeling our higher self. And that's what the show is all about, is to really get in there and get our guidance from the highest source that's for our highest good. Okay, let's see. Any other comments or questions from the live viewers? I love to have you on here with me. Thank you so much for joining. I love it. And I'm always happy to hear if you have any comments as we go along. Okay, let's see. Next question. I know everything is supposed to be divine. However, I can't seem to process politics and war under this same idea. How to navigate this complexity? I totally get you. I see where you're coming from. And I, on one hand, want to go, yeah, how can that be divine? And yet I know unequivocally, without a doubt, that all of these things are distractions. The media has been a form of distraction for a long time. The media in general, which, anything in our external world, but I'm going to pick on the media for just a little bit, that they run the same stories over and over and over to create a narrative, and also to bring fear, to bring compliance, to bring all of these interesting things. Let's see. It looks like I might have, did I lose you guys? I went to another screen. Okay, I'm not sure what happened there, but something funky went on. Okay. I lost you, but I don't think you lost me, so that's good. So back to the distraction. So isn't that weird? Okay, wait. Just as I'm talking about media, I've got a multimedia platform that I'm streaming this on, and I'm even getting disconnected from that. So those distractions keep you from accessing your true intuition, your true knowledge, your true self, your ability to know thyself. And so we have to continue to just monitor ourselves and go, hey, is this really what I want to put my energy towards? Is listening to all the political narratives something I want to put my energy towards? It might be that you have someone that you follow or you believe in and you want to support them, and that's fine. But don't spend all day watching all the rhetoric that's happening about all the candidates and all of this and all of that. Spend the time manifesting. Hey, if I really believe in someone or something, spend the time manifesting. Be in meditation and say, I really feel that this person is representing the things that I believe in. And I would like for the universe to align the opportunities for the others to see what these qualities are, and leave it at that. So you're putting your intention out there, but don't spend the time, commenting and convincing, and then you're just falling into the trap. And the same thing about the war. I think the war is certainly a different topic. I need to just have a little drink of my matcha green tea. I've got something coming up. Maybe it's the war in my throat. I'm not sure. Let's see. That when we're talking about war, it's so interesting that war comes from religion, right? It stems from religion. There's always something that you're at war with about what you believe in. And it's those being at odds about what you believe in with our fellow brothers and sisters that creates this animosity. But it's also this idea of control and power, of course, right? That's the obvious. But when we start to dissect it and we get really deep into the ideas around war, it's really allowing the underbelly, the deeper, darker bits and pieces of power and money and authority and let me be seen, whether it's a Putin or, I want to be seen for my, right. And he thinks he's doing this for the good of his country. And the good of his country is the good of humanity. So he actually believes in his why. So if we keep trying to go head to head with these ideas around war, we're just going to be in a constant battle of power and influence. And again, I would come back to, Mother Teresa never would participate in anti-war rallies or peace rallies or any of that, because that was not the energetic vibration she wanted to be in. And the more we can come back to our own communities and take that lens off of the disparity around war and the narratives and all of that, and we say, you know what, my only job here is to shine my light, is to heal my wounds, and to show others what that looks like and what that feels like. That's where I think we make the biggest difference. It's not so much in the wars, which are, in a weird way, part of this divine plan. Because sometimes, the age-old, I guess it's a phrase, sometimes people can't move forward until they hit rock bottom. And that's really what's happening in many parts of the world right now. And the US is completely interlaced into all of these ideas of power and money and influence, right? So that's that. I'm not saying that there's one particular country to blame for any of this. It's all of us. And it's time to see these in their rightful place, which is a distraction. And for us as light workers, way showers, awakened beings, to just monitor ourselves. Hey, how much time am I spending watching that, talking about that? Like, where's the balance? Where's the balance of me shining my light? And where's the balance of me showing brotherly and sisterly love to strangers on the street? Because that's where we can really make the difference. Not so much in these big rallies against this, that, or the other. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying, just think about it. Like, where's your energy best spent? Like, where do you really feel good at the end of the day? Is it going and, rallying against something? Or is it bringing your heart forward with something that you're actually for, something that you really believe in, something that you really want? Let's spend our time there, and let's trust that there is a divine plan for all of this, to see how it works out and how it unfolds, and take ownership as to how we contribute to this here in planet Earth in this lifetime. Okay, if you have any additional comments on that, I'm always open to hearing about that. And let's jump into the next question. And before I do, I think I'm going to take another little sip of my matcha tea. Are you guys drinking anything when you're watching this? I know for some of you it's later in the afternoon, but are you drinking any liquids of any kind? I always drink my matcha out of my Buddha head mug, and I don't know that it makes me more wise, but I definitely love to drink out of it. Okay, next question. What does it mean to be seen? How does it feel to be seen? Also, is this in the same vein as when someone compassionately asks me, do you feel me? To check in with me, to ask if I understand him or her and where they are coming from. Well, I think there's two questions here. So what does it mean to be seen? What comes to mind is part of that question is, why do we need to be seen by anyone? Right? Like, yes, I get it. We all like to be seen. I'm just following the energy of the insights for this question. If we didn't worry about being seen by anybody, if we didn't worry about being validated by anybody, where would we be? And if we anchored into that feeling of me, that feeling of, I know who I am, and I know what I offer, and I'm going to have the experience of fun to see how my presence shows up and how the external world reacts to it. And I make it fun. Like, do they ignore me? Do they see me? Do they feel me? Right? Because that is the jostling of opinions and, who am I versus you? And it's still around separation. I know this was not meant to be this, well, I don't know, but it feels like it wasn't meant to be this deep of a question, but this is what's coming through about this question about being seen. Like, do we really need to be seen? How does it feel to be seen? Okay, so let's go back to that. To be seen, I think, is to feel validated, and it's to feel recognized, and it's to feel loved. And again, I would just go back to just a question of, what if we just loved and we didn't worry about who saw it, felt it, and we just knew that deeply within that our presence alone brightened the room, even though someone might not come and say, wow, when you walked in, the room really brightened, that we just go, I know who I am and I know what I'm here to do. And I'm going to just bring my big, juicy, wide open heart to this room because, sometimes people see you and they see that big bright light and they see that big heart and they don't like it. Why do they not like it? Because that's not where they are and it triggers them. And they have a reaction to you that is, I don't know, I'm making this up, but, closed. They may even come and try to say something that tries to dampen your light, right? And if you're sitting in the energy of, I want to be seen, and that person's trying to dampen your light, it's not a nice feeling. So if we walk in with, and it's not that we don't care, it's that we just care less about what the external world is reflecting to us. And yet at the same time, we're observing for our own good. Hey, what's happening out there? Like, how is my presence dancing with the presence of someone else without the judgment of, oh, well, they must be this or they must be that. But just like, oh, I just want to feel that. I just want to feel that in my big, juicy, white, bright heart, whatever it is. And sometimes it's discomfort. And sometimes it's like, wow, they're like making me out to be somebody I'm not. Well, sometimes that's your shit and sometimes it's theirs. And so I don't know, the whole idea about being seen, I think I would just kind of reframe how I jump into that one. All right. We've got, I think, one more question here. And yes, we're getting on to the end here. So let me jump into this. My wife and I are separating. It's mutual, and yet it's incredibly difficult for many reasons. The most challenging is that we have a 6-year-old daughter. I'm not sure how to go about telling our child that I'm moving out. Any advice? Yeah, these relationships, they can get kind of sticky. And I'm feeling from the question that you are very awake, very aware, very conscious, and that you really do want this to have a lasting impact on your family in the most positive way possible. So first of all, I really commend you for even asking the question and for diving into it so deeply. And I think one of the things that comes to mind to remind everyone is that as a child, they've come in to this world choosing you as their mother and father. And they already know on a soul level what the plan is. They already know that their mom and dad is not going to be together on a soul level, of course. And they've called in this experience to help you as one of the parents and to have the experience themselves. So I think the best thing you can do is tell the truth. Now, I know that sounds kind of funny, like, well, why would I lie? Well, I'm not saying you would like intentionally lie. I'm just saying that sometimes we try to sugarcoat things. We try to, make them palatable for our children, or we try not to cry or not be emotional because we don't want to upset them. And I think the first thing to do is to say exactly how you feel. I'm really bummed out, or I'm really excited about some new opportunities. And I know it might not be these exact words because we're talking about a child. But I'm saying in the truth of it, like really getting in there and saying, daddy has some big growth opportunities coming. And it means that we have to move in our family system in a different way. And that means that I'm not going to be here every single day, but I'm going to love you every single moment. And The fact that our family is not going to live under the same household every single day doesn't mean that we're not a family. We're still going to be together as a unit for the rest of our lives, because that's just how it works. Your mother and I, have given birth to you as our child, and we will always honor that connection. No matter what's happening between me and your mom, we're going to hold this container, and again, not the right words for a child, but we're going to hold this space for you to grow and flourish, and we're going to love you so much. And there may come a time when other people come into our family too to help support us, because sometimes it's hard as a single parent, and again, maybe not these words, but just bringing it up, like, hey, sometimes it's going to be hard for me as your dad, because I'm going to have a lot of things happening, but I'm always going to love you, right? So you just keep coming back to the core of the truth. I am always going to love you. And hey, I'm sad. I'm sad that this is what's happening. And I want you to feel how this impacts you. And again, you can use the words of your child and examples that come to mind that maybe resonate for them a little bit more based on stories that you've told or books that you read, or wherever you're at in your journey. And keep talking about your feelings, because the more you talk about your feelings with your child, even though sometimes you feel like, oh, I shouldn't talk about that because I should just hold that presence, and I shouldn't be sad. No, I think your child needs to see you be sad. I think your child, maybe not like completely losing it to where you have zero control of yourself. I'm not saying that. There are private moments that are important for you to take for yourself. But the more you can show them how to feel in their body, because through your own feeling, the more they're going to learn from this experience, and the less trauma they're going to take. And I think sometimes the biggest trauma we can give to our children is staying in relationships that we know are not here for our greatest good and our highest level of expansion and to live our soul's plan. And sometimes we just can't see that from the beginning of a relationship. And I talk about this many times, but the soul's plan is vast, and it takes us sometimes lifetimes to really come back to what is our soul's plan that gets us to that awakened state, and then the next awakened state, and the next awakened state. And relationships and family and all of this is part of it. And so sometimes that soul contract with another person ends, and another one begins with someone else. And and honey, my little child, like, I want you to know that sometimes relationships end in their current form, but they transform into these beautiful beautiful flowers beyond what we can imagine. And so it's about really feeling into that gratefulness, feeling the gratefulness of what it's like to feel the unconditional love between parents that may be separating when you might not be able to be there for that every moment. And you say to them, hey, I really missed out on that first step, or that, first grade, or, whatever it is, that you just share that. You don't sweep that under the rug and like hold guilt or shame over, something that you had to do that took priority. It's like, well, this happened and this is where I'm at with it. And you teach your children, when you start talking about how you feel, that it's okay to feel, and they'll be able to move through life with ease and grace because of it. So I do not see separation or divorce as a bad thing. It can be a challenging thing, and I don't discount it at all, but it is a beautiful thing for all parties when it's done in a conscious way. And I know that you're working on that conscious uncoupling. So much love to you and to your family as you continue on this journey. I really appreciate you as a person moving through this. Okay. I think with that, we are down to the hour. And so each week, I love having you here, 11:11. There's lots of things over at bethbell.me, but most importantly, if there's one thing that you were to do today, if you haven't already done it, I would go fill out the State of the Heart assessment, because it'll give you where you're at in your heart. You might be surprised. And even if you end up with a whole heart, we never know when things happen in our life, and we need that toolbox to get us out of heartbreak, out of heartache, It's inevitable in life that in relationships, things are going to happen and we're going to learn from them. So getting our heart back to wholeness and back to bliss is really our core job and task here on planet Earth. So please go over, fill out the State of the Heart assessment. There's also the Awakening and Healing Handbook. I've referred to family constellations today. There's lots more information on all the tips, tools, techniques, and modalities that I talk about in my book, Angels, Herpes, and Psychedelics. There's also the psychedelic resource guide. So if you are at all interested in learning a little bit more about the wisdom of plants and plant medicine, I think you'll find that to be a really interesting guide. And it may be that you know someone who's starting to get involved in plant medicines and you want to learn a little bit more about what they're up to. And in addition to that, we've got the herpes handbook. I know it's always like, why are you talking about that? But it's also about the viruses of the mind. So it's about getting over things that cause shame and guilt and hold us back from blossoming into our true potential. So please check out that guide if that resonates at all for you. And as always, I love the questions, so please keep them coming. You can pre-submit them at bethbell.me/question, or you can put them here in the comments. And if you want to go deeper, I so encourage you to apply for the Awaken Inner Wisdom membership. We go deeper into all things spiritual, all things on the Ascension journey, all things about awakening inner wisdom, coming back to that center, really knowing thyself, and being in an awakened state in our everyday life. So I so appreciate you here. Thank you so much for listening. And until next week on Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, I'm wishing you much bliss and love on the journey. Namaste.